I guess we'll start. Hello and welcome to the York to Columbus public hearing to discuss the conceptual design and draft environmental assessment. Thank you for joining us. If you haven't already, please be sure to sign in at the welcome table, where you can also pick up project information. A court reporter is here today to record this presentation and a public forum. Please save your questions and comments for the end of the presentation when we open the public forum. At that time, you can verbally provide comments or write a comment for us to read. The purpose of today's public hearing is to present the project, gather public input as part of the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as NEPA, which we'll explain more about later. Today, the project is looking for feedback on a preferred alternative and its potential impacts as listed in the draft environmental assessment. NDOT and the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, won't be responding to questions tonight, as we need to carefully review your feedback. Instead, your comments during the public forum will be recorded by a court reporter and addressed in the final environmental assessment. We will formally respond to all comments received during the public forum and throughout the comment period, either in writing or in the final EA environmental assessment posted on NDOT's website. Today we will begin with a brief introduction of the panel. Then we'll cover an overdraft of the project. Next, we'll discuss the draft environmental assessment, potential impacts, and next steps. We will conclude with the public forum, which is when we will take comments. First, let's do introductions. My name is James Kindig, and I am the State Highway Commissioner for District 4. With me from NDOT are Don Knott, Project Manager, Jason Jurgens, Environmental, Wes Walgren, District Engineer, and Sierra Loon, Public Involvement. With that, I'll turn it over to Wes to go into the project overviews.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks everyone for coming tonight too. The proposed York to Columbus project would expand US Highway 81 from a 2-lane highway to a 4-lane expressway along an approximately 41-mile segment in York, Polk, and Butler counties. The 4-lane expressway would transition into a 3-lane roadway in Stromsburg, Osceola, and Shelby. The proposed project would start at the end of the existing 4-lane bypass just north of the North US 34 and US Highway 81 intersection on the York bypass. It would extend north for approximately 41 miles to just north of the Nebraska Highway 64 and US Highway 81 intersection, where it would connect to the existing 4-lane expressway south of Columbus. The purpose of the project is to fulfill legislative intent to continue development of the expressway system identified in the 1988 Nebraska Highway Needs Study. It's to improve regional connectivity for vehicles in east central Nebraska by providing important expressway connections with US Highway 34, Nebraska Highway 66, Nebraska Highway 92, and Nebraska Highway 69, and Nebraska Highway 64, while maintaining convenient highway access for communities in the area, to also improve the condition of the existing infrastructure. The project is needed because there's a gap in the US Highway 81 expressway from the Kansas-Nebraska border to Norfolk, a lack of connectivity in east central Nebraska, and existing infrastructure deficiencies. The improvements of the preferred alternative would widen US Highway 81 from the existing 2-lane highway to a 4-lane expressway using the 2+2 concept, which I will explain on the next slide. The expressway would also change to 3 lanes in urban areas, then return to 4 lanes through the rural segments of the project. There are 8 existing bridge structures included in the project that would need replacement, rehabilitation, or repair. A second set of structures would also be built adjacent to the existing structures to accommodate the additional lanes. The preferred alternative would use the 2+2 construction concept to construct 2 new lanes adjacent to the existing 2 lanes of US Highway 81. Highway 80 to create a 4-lane corridor. Using the 2+2 approach would allow the improvements to be constructed without detour while the new lanes are being built on one side. Traffic would be maintained on the existing lanes. Once the new lanes are completed, one direction of traffic would be shifted onto the new lanes. Where needed, the existing lanes would be repaired and resurfaced, 1 lane at a time while maintaining traffic. Once this is complete, the highway would be open to 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. This construction approach would minimize traffic disruption and maximize the use of the existing highway. This slide shows a typical rural 4-lane section within the proposed project. The new roadway would be constructed on either side of the existing roadway, as previously described. The new lanes would have 2 12-foot wide lanes with an 8-foot wide paved shoulder on the outside and a 4-foot wide paved shoulder on the inside. NDOT would resurface and reuse the existing roadway to preserve the existing asset, save costs, and reduce the time to complete the project. The median would be approximately 54 feet wide. In urban areas, the expressway would transition to 3 lanes. This slide shows a typical urban 3-lane section within the proposed project. In non-curbed areas, such as in Osceola, the existing roadway would be expanded to have 2 12-foot wide lanes with an 8-foot wide paved shoulder in each direction, and a 14-foot wide 2-way left turning lane would be added. The total roadway width would be 54 feet. Portions of the 3-lane section through Osceola would be modified with curb to reduce impacts. In Shelby, the project would add an urban 3-lane section while preserving the existing curbed and non-curbed areas. NDOT would not make improvements in Stromsburg because the in Stromsburg project is currently under construction to expand US Highway 81 to 3 lanes in Stromsburg. With that, I'll now hand it over to Jason Jurgens.
Thanks, Wes. Again, my name's Jason Jurgens, and I'm the Environmental Section Manager at NDOT. I'll be discussing the Draft Environmental Assessment, or the Draft EA. What is the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA? NEPA is a law that requires federal agencies to consider the environmental impacts of their proposed actions before making decisions. FHWA, in partnership with NDOT, is the designated lead federal agency for this project action. Under NEPA, FHWA and NDOT must document these impacts and make the information publicly available for comment. NEPA is addressed for this project through an environmental assessment, generally referred to as an EA. Currently, we have a draft EA ready for review and comment. The draft EA examines project benefits and potential impacts on the natural and human environment based on the conceptual design. We'll discuss these impacts in detail in upcoming slides. The draft EA considers and evaluates project impacts on the natural environment, such as water quality, wetlands, and wildlife, and as well as the human environment, which includes socioeconomics, noise, historic resources, recreational property, and hazardous materials. The draft EA is available for review and comment at today's hearing. There are also copies of on the project website and at several physical locations, which we will list at the end of this presentation. Now I'm going to hand it over to Don to talk about the preferred alternative.
Thank you, Jason. Hello, my name is Dawn Knott, and I'm a design engineer with the Department of Transportation and the project manager for the project. To identify a preferred alternative, our team began by dividing the corridor into segments and evaluating impacts of placing the lanes on either side of the existing roadway. The team then considered input from the public and federal and state resources. After analyzing the different options, all but one alternative was eliminated for each segment of the project. This combination of segment alternatives, along with the 4 to 3 lane transitions into and out of Stromsburg, Osceola, and Shelby, make up the preferred alternative. This alternative is the one that best fits the purpose and need, considering any potential environmental, social, and economic impacts. It was carried forward for further analysis because it balances the broader goals of infrastructure improvement while minimizing environmental and community impacts. This map shows the preferred alternative and intersection types. I'll describe the alternatives for each segment and discuss the intersection types in more detail on later slides. Please notice the legend on the slide in the following 3 slides. The blue line represents the existing lanes, and the red line represents the locations of the new 2 lanes. The intersection types and locations are also shown. On the next 3 slides, we'll zoom in on one segment of US 81, so you can see the location of the segment on the left in relation to the corridor on the right. Working south to north, the preferred alternative involves placing the new lanes east of the existing roadway from York to Stromsburg. A restricted crossing U-turn intersection, or R-cut, would be constructed at US Highway 81's intersections with Nebraska Spur 93C near Benedict and Nebraska Highway 66 near Cross County Schools. As previously mentioned, no improvements will occur in Stromsburg because the In Stromsburg project is currently under construction to expand US 81 to 3 lanes in town. Moving north of Stromsburg, the lanes would continue to be placed east of the existing roadway to the Nebraska Highway 92 west intersection, which would be converted to a roundabout. For the east-west portion of the project between Nebraska Highway 92 west and east intersections, the preferred alternative would place the new lanes north of the existing roadway. In Osceola, the preferred alternative would create a 3-lane urban section with shoulders. Portions of the 3-lane section through Osceola would be constructed with curb to reduce impacts. In Shelby, the preferred alternative would create an urban 3-lane section while preserving the existing curbed and non-curbed areas. The US Highway 81 east intersection with Nebraska Highway 92 would be converted to a roundabout. Moving towards Columbus, the new lanes would be placed on the west side of the existing roadway. An R-cut would be constructed at the US Highway 81 intersection with Nebraska Highway 64. Just to reiterate the locations of the new 2 roundabouts, we wanted to enlarge the map and show you what it could look like. This graphic shows the roundabout at US Highway 81 and Nebraska Highway 92 west intersection. The county road going into this roundabout is shown as a dashed line because it is still being analyzed by NDOT. NDOT is considering relocating the county road outside the roundabout and will discuss alternatives with the county. This graphic shows the US 81 and Nebraska Highway 92 east intersection. As previously stated, the county road alignment is still being analyzed, and NDOT will discuss alternatives with the county. To learn more, you can visit the roundabout board or scan the QR code shown here to visit NDOT's roundabout webpage. Next, I'll discuss restricted crossing U-turns or R-cuts. These are newer to Nebraska, but NDOT has constructed 2 on highways within the state that are operating successfully, and a third one is currently under construction. I'll briefly touch base on ARCUTs while on this slide. To learn more, you can visit the ARCUT board or scan the QR code shown here to visit NDOT's ARCUT webpage. For this project, ARCUTs will be constructed at US Highway 81's intersection with Nebraska Spur 93C near Benedict, Nebraska Highway 66 near Cross Country School, County School, and Nebraska Highway 64 south of Columbus. You can see on the graphic on the right of the slide, ARCUTs work in a way that drivers approaching US Highway 81 from intersecting roads would not be allowed to make left turns or cross traffic. Instead, they would be required to turn right and make a U-turn at a designated median opening. Traffic would still be able to turn left and right onto intersecting roads from US Highway 81. The ARCUTs at Nebraska Spur 93C, Nebraska Highway 66, and Nebraska Highway 64 would be designed to allow adequate space for large vehicles, such as buses, semis, and large agricultural vehicles, to turn at the intersections. Vehicle queuing would be considered during the final design process to provide appropriate turn lane storage for anticipated traffic conditions. The intersection lighting would be incorporated. Prior to the construction of the projects, NDOT would also take measures to educate young drivers, such as giving a presentation to cross-county high schoolers. Our team conducted a pedestrian study to evaluate accessibility for crossing US Highway in Shelby and in Osceola. We evaluated factors such as traffic flow, pedestrian volumes, and existing infrastructure, in addition to different types of pedestrian crossings and traffic control devices. We have proposed solutions aimed at safer and more efficient pedestrian movement in both cities. In Osceola, there are currently beacons at the US Highway 81 and North State Street intersection. In Shelby, there are signs and markings the US Highway 81 and Walnut intersection. Both existing crossings would be upgraded to a rectangular, rapid flashing beacon. These are push button activated, and you can see an example on the slide. I'll now hand it back over to Jason Juergens to discuss potential impacts.
The project team evaluated cultural resources and historic properties along the project. Historic properties include buildings, structures, objects, and archaeological sites and districts that are 50 years or older and hold significance based on criteria established in the National Historic Preservation Act. Along the project route, there are 3 such historic properties. The first historic property is known as the Filman Place. It includes a 1930s era National Folk-styled house. The historic property is located near the US 81 and County Road 18 intersection. The project involves construction near this property, and efforts have been made to minimize effects. Some trees and bushes would be removed, the property's driveway would be altered, and the existing "The Filman Place" sign would be relocated. The character-defining attributes which make this property eligible for inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places would also not be adversely affected. The remaining 2 historic properties include a Queen Anne-style house located along Highway 81 in Shelby, and a farmstead located just north of the Nebraska Highway 92 and B Road intersection in Rising City. These historic properties would not be affected by the project as currently proposed. There are 10 properties located near the project that are protected by Section 4F of the Transportation Act of 1966. Section 4F provides protections for historic properties, parks, and recreational areas. Only 2 would have construction impacts that would be considered a use under Section 4F. In Stromsburg, minor impacts on Buckley Park and Two Parks Trail are anticipated. NDOT would minimize the impacts to Buckley Park by placing the new lanes on the east side of the existing roadway, although temporary easements may be needed from within the property boundaries of the park. Due to the roadway widening to the east, Two Parks Trail from Buckley Park to the Nebraska Central Railroad Company rail line would require realignment east of the widened roadway. During construction, pedestrian access to Buckley Park would be maintained via the existing sidewalk on the west side of US Highway 81. Any necessary improvements would be made to the sidewalk before using it as a pedestrian detour route. Following construction, Two Parks Trail would be reconstructed in as good as, if not better than, its pre-construction condition. The proposed project would require acquisition of additional property rights, which could include new right-of-way, control of access, permanent easements, temporary easements, relocations, or impacts to existing center pivot irrigation systems. If your property is impacted by this project, you would be contacted by an NDOT representative once the design footprint has been established. Access to adjacent properties would be maintained during construction, but may be limited at times due to traffic phasing requirements. This slide shows the location of impacted structures along the alignment. Impacts on 22 structures, including houses and outbuildings, are anticipated. I know it is difficult to read here, but we have boards with this information, and these locations are also shown on the large mosaics for more detailed view. Impacts to wetlands and streams are anticipated and would be mitigated as necessary. The project may affect, but is not likely to adversely affect, threatened and endangered species, including the Eskimo curlew, northern long-eared bat, and the whooping crane. Consultation for the tricolor bat is still ongoing. A preliminary noise study has been prepared and is available for review today. It found that in 2050, the preferred alternative would have noise impacts on 42 receptors, primarily single-family residents. 2 locations meet the feasibility and reasonableness requirements for noise abatement. Further evaluation would be needed before any noise abatement is implemented. Additional design refinement and coordination with the affected property owners would occur during the final design. This project would be constructed under traffic, with lane closures controlled by appropriate traffic control devices and practices. Temporary surfacing may be required to accommodate phased construction. Access to community resources, area schools, police, fire services would not be affected. A highway detour would not be required. To the extent possible, adjacent county roads would not be closed at the same time while intersection work is occurring. Now let's talk about our schedule. 3 public meetings were held in March of this year before drafting the environmental assessment, which is the reason for today's public hearing. Many activities still need to occur before construction could start, including preliminary design, completion of the final environmental assessment, final design, right-of-way acquisition, and contract lettings. The project is anticipated to be built in 4 phases, with 1 phase being let to construction each year as soon as 2029. The project schedule is based on several assumptions and is subject to change based on the availability of funds and agency approvals. Total project costs are estimated at $400 million to $450 million.
Staff will be available in the lobby to answer any additional questions you have. If you didn't receive a handout or comment form when you arrived, there are additional copies available up at the welcome table in the front lobby area, as well as at the comment table itself. Please remember to sign in if you didn't do so already. That just ensures that you're going to receive any further information on the project that we send out. Like I said, thank you for your time and participation tonight, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and leave this up with the locations of all the draft EAs Feel free to find staff. We have the maps back here if you want to locate your property as well. Thank you.